The gunshot that echoed through Marysville, California, that sweltering August morning in 1873, was not what changed Cole Norwood's life, though it certainly got his attention as he rode down Main Street with dust caking his worn leather boots and exhaustion pulling at every muscle in his body. What changed everything was the woman who did not flinch at the sound, who simply continued arranging golden-crusted pies on a wooden table outside the general store, her capable hands moving with practiced grace while chaos erupted around her. Cole had been riding for 3 weeks straight, trailing a herd of cattle from Nevada to Sacramento with nothing but whiskey-breathed ranch hands and ornery steers for company. He was 32 years old, alone in every way that mattered, and so bone-tired that he had started talking to his horse just to hear a voice that did not belong to someone who wanted something from him. The cattle drive was done, his payment sat heavy in his saddlebag, and all he had wanted was a hot meal and a bed that did not move beneath him. But then he saw her, and suddenly his exhaustion seemed like a distant concern. She had auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun, though rebellious strands escaped to frame a face that was neither classically beautiful nor plain, but something far more arresting. Her features held character, from the determined set of her jaw to the slight crook in her nose that suggested it had been broken once and healed without a doctor's care. She wore a simple calico dress in faded blue, an apron tied around her waist that bore flower stains like badges of honor. But what struck Cole most were her eyes, green as new spring grass, which finally lifted to meet his as he brought his horse to a stop before her makeshift stand. "You selling those pies, miss?" His voice came out rougher than he intended, gravelly from disuse and trail dust. "That is generally what happens when you set up a table full of baked goods in the middle of town," she replied, and there was a hint of amusement in her tone that took any sting from the words. "Apple, cherry, and peach, 50 cents each." Cole dismounted, his legs protesting the movement after so many hours in the saddle. Up close, he could see the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the slight calluses on her fingers, the way she held herself with the kind of quiet strength that came from weathering storms. She was perhaps 27 or 28, he guessed, old enough to have lived through hardship but young enough to still have hope in her eyes. "I will take them all," he heard himself say. Her eyebrows rose. "All of them. Every single one." Cole reached for his saddlebag, pulling out a small leather pouch. "How many you got there?" She blinked at him, clearly reassessing. 12 pies. That is $6. Done." He counted out the coins, aware that he was likely making a fool of himself but finding he did not particularly care. "But I got a condition." Her expression shifted, wariness creeping in around the edges. She took a small step back, her hand moving almost imperceptibly toward the pocket of her apron where Cole suspected she kept some form of protection. He had seen that careful retreat before, in women who had learned to be cautious around strange men with too much money and odd requests. "I am a respectable woman," she said quietly, firmly. "If you are looking for—" "No, madam, nothing like that," Cole interrupted quickly, holding up his hands. "I apologize. I did not mean to suggest anything improper. I just meant, well, these are the finest-looking pies I have seen in months, maybe years. And I was thinking, a woman who can bake like this, she should not be selling on street corners. She should have steady work, steady pay." Suspicion had not entirely left her face, but curiosity was beginning to edge in alongside it. "What are you proposing, Mr. Cole Norwood, madam?" He removed his hat, running a hand through sweat-dampened dark hair. "I am proposing employment. I got a ranch about an hour ride north of here. It is nothing fancy, just a small operation I have been building up the past 5 years. Got a herd of about 200 head, 3 ranch hands who live in the bunkhouse, and a main house that is sorely lacking in decent food. My cooking is terrible enough that I think my own horse would refuse it. I need someone who can prepare meals, keep the kitchen, and if you are willing, bake. I will pay you $20 a month, plus room and board in the main house. Separate quarters, of course, all proper. She studied him for a long moment, those green eyes seeming to see right through his trail-worn exterior to something deeper beneath. You make a habit of offering jobs to strange women on the street. No, madam, but I make a habit of recognizing quality when I see it, and I see it in these pies. He gestured to the table. Also, if I am being honest, I am desperate. The last woman I hired to cook lasted 2 days before she ran off with a traveling salesman. The one before that burned everything she touched, and I do mean everything. We lost a good stove in that incident. A smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, brief but genuine. You have not asked my name. I figured you would tell me if you wanted me to know it. Catherine Kane. She said it simply, without elaboration, and Cole sensed there was a story there but knew better than to pry. I have been in Marysville for 3 months. I live in a boarding house on Cedar Street, and I have been trying to make enough money selling pies and taking in laundry to save for a proper bakery shop. How is that working out for you? Catherine's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Slowly. Mrs. Henderson at the bakery on 4th Street does not appreciate competition, even from someone working out of a boarding house kitchen. She has made certain that I cannot get a loan from the bank, and she has persuaded most of the town's establishments not to carry my goods. Sounds like you could use a change of scenery. It also sounds like you could be a madman planning to murder me and leave my body in a ravine. But there was no real heat in her words, just a kind of weary pragmatism. Cole could not help but laugh, surprised by her directness. That is fair. Tell you what. Take the $6 for these pies. Think on my offer. I will be staying at the Marysville Hotel tonight. If you want the job, meet me at the livery stable tomorrow morning at 8. Bring whoever you want as chaperone to ride out and see the place. If you do not feel safe about it, no hard feelings. But I will tell you truly, Miss Kane, I am just a tired rancher who is sick of eating his own terrible beans and salt pork. She regarded him thoughtfully, then began stacking the pies carefully. You said now bake only for you. I did. You said these pies were fine enough that I should be baking for steady work. Implied that steady work would be for you. Catherine met his eyes directly. That is quite a presumptuous statement from a stranger. Cole felt heat rise to his face, but he did not look away. You are right. That was presumptuous. I apologize, Miss Kane. Blame it on too many days in the saddle and not enough decent conversation. Or blame it on knowing what you want when you see it. Her tone had shifted slightly, thoughtful rather than accusatory. I will consider your offer, Mr. Norwood. I make no promises, but I will consider it. That is all I can ask. Cole gathered up the pies carefully, stacking them in a crate she provided. The $6 still stands, regardless of what you decide. That is more than fair. Catherine pocketed the coins, then began folding her table. Mr. Norwood, did you really just spend $6 on pies because you think I can bake well, or was there another reason? He could have lied, could have kept up the pretense that this was purely a business transaction born of practical need. But something about her directness demanded honesty in return. I think you bake well. I also think you did not flinch when that gun went off earlier, which tells me you are steady under pressure. And I think you have kind eyes even though you have got reason to be suspicious of strangers, which tells me you have not let this world make you bitter. Those seem like good qualities in a person. Catherine's expression softened almost imperceptibly. 8 o'clock at the livery stable. I will bring my landlady, Mrs. Patterson. She is a formidable woman with a pistol in her reticule and a strong throwing arm. I would expect nothing less. Cole tipped his hat to her, managing a smile despite his exhaustion. Good day, Miss Kane. Good day, Mr. Norwood. He led his horse toward the hotel, the crate of pies balanced carefully in one arm, very aware that Catherine was still watching him. When he glanced back, she had returned to folding her table, but there was something different in the set of her shoulders, as though a burden had shifted slightly. That night, Cole lay in an actual bed in an actual room and ate 3 slices of Catherine Kane's apple pie, and thought that perhaps his lonely days might finally be coming to an end. The next morning arrived with the kind of bright, cloudless sky that made California feel like God's favorite place. Cole was at the livery stable by 7:30, his horse freshly groomed and a second mount saddled and ready for Catherine if she decided to come. He had slept better than he had in months, though whether that was due to the comfortable bed or the prospect of seeing the pie-selling woman again, he preferred not to examine too closely. At precisely 8 o'clock, Catherine appeared at the end of the street, accompanied by a gray-haired woman of considerable girth and even more considerable bearing. Mrs. Patterson had the look of a woman who had seen everything life could throw at her and had thrown most of it right back. She carried a large reticule and walked with a cane that Cole suspected was more weapon than walking aid. Mr. Norwood, Catherine greeted him, looking fresh and composed in a green dress that matched her eyes. This is Mrs. Adelaide Patterson, my landlady and friend. Madam. Cole removed his hat respectfully. Thank you for accompanying Miss Kane. I have a horse ready if you would like to ride out to the ranch, or I can arrange a wagon if that would be more comfortable. Mrs. Patterson fixed him with a gaze that could have stripped paint. I will be staying right here in town, young man. But I will be expecting Catherine back by supper time, and if she is not here, I will be coming looking for her with the sheriff and every able-bodied man I can round up. Are we clear? Crystal clear, madam. And if I hear one single word, about improper behavior or suggestions or anything that even hints at taking advantage, I will personally see to it that you regret the day you were born. I would expect nothing less, madam, Mrs. Patterson's stern expression cracked slightly, a hint of approval showing through. Well, at least you have manners. That is more than most. Catherine, you keep that knife I gave you handy and you trust your instincts. They have not steered you wrong yet. I will be fine, Adelaide. Catherine squeezed the older woman's hand, and Cole saw genuine affection pass between them. I promise. The ride north out of Marysville took them through rolling golden hills dotted with oak trees, the landscape both harsh and beautiful in the way of California in late summer. Catherine rode well, sitting her horse with the easy competence of someone raised around animals. For the first mile they traveled in silence, but it was a comfortable quiet rather than an awkward one. You are a good rider, Cole finally said. Grew up on a ranch, farm, Iowa originally. Catherine's gaze swept across the landscape. My father raised corn and hogs. I learned to ride almost before I learned to walk. We had a bay mare named Clementine who was the sweetest creature God ever made. What brought you to California? Her expression closed off slightly. The usual reasons. Looking for a fresh start, better opportunities. The farm was failing, my father died, and my brother inherited what was left. He married a woman who made it clear there was not room for me anymore. I am sorry. Do not be. It was 3 years ago, and I have made my own way since then. She glanced at him. What about you? You do not have the look of someone born to ranching. Cole found himself surprised by her perceptiveness. You are right about that. I was a lawyer back in St. Louis. Worked for a big firm, wore fancy suits, argued cases in courtrooms. What changed? The war. 2 words that held 1,000 stories, most of which he had no intention of sharing. After that, I could not go back to arguing about property disputes and contract law. It all seemed so small and meaningless. So I came west, worked as a ranch hand for a few years, saved my money and bought my own place. It is not much, but it is mine, and I built it with my own hands. Catherine nodded slowly. I understand that. The need to build something that belongs to you that no one can take away. They rode on, and Cole found himself stealing glances at her, noting the way the sunlight caught the auburn in her hair, the competent way she handled the reins, the slight smile that played at her lips as they crested a hill, and she caught sight of a hawk circling overhead. She was beautiful, he realized, not in the delicate china doll way that society preferred, but in a way that was real and solid and lasting. The Norwood Ranch came into view as they rounded a bend in the trail. It was not impressive by any grand standard, just a sturdy two-story ranch house with a wide porch, a barn that Cole had built himself, a bunkhouse for the hands, several corrals and pastures stretching out toward the tree line. But it was well maintained, the fences straight and strong, the buildings painted and solid. It is a good-looking place, Catherine said, and Cole heard the sincerity in her voice. You should be proud. I am, he admitted. It is not fancy, but it is honest work and honest land. 3 men emerged from the barn as they approached, ranch hands who had been with Cole for over a year. Pete was the oldest, a weathered cowboy in his 50s with a salt and pepper beard and a game leg from a horse accident years back. Danny was barely 20, all enthusiasm and clumsy energy. Hector was somewhere in between, a steady hand from Texas with a quiet demeanor and a gift for working with horses. Boys, this is Miss Catherine Kane, Cole announced as they dismounted. She is considering taking the position as ranch cook and housekeeper. I expect you to be on your best behavior and show her the respect she deserves. Madam. Pete removed his hat, and the other 2 quickly followed suit. We would be mighty grateful to have decent cooking again. No offense, boss, but your biscuits could be used as ammunition. Catherine laughed, a genuine sound that made something warm unfurl in Cole's chest. I promise my biscuits will not double as weapons, though I make no promises about what I might do with them if anyone gives me trouble. I like her already, Danny said with a grin. Cole showed Catherine around the property, starting with the bunkhouse where the men lived. It was clean and well organized, with 3 beds, a stove, and a table for meals. Then the barn, where she met the horses and the milk cow and expressed appropriate admiration for Cole's breeding stock. She asked intelligent questions about the operation, how many head of cattle, what the seasonal work looked like, how supplies were managed. Finally, they entered the main house, and Cole felt suddenly nervous about how she would perceive his living space. The front door opened into a main room that served as living area and dining space, with a stone fireplace that Cole had built himself, taking 3 attempts to get the chimney to draw properly. The furniture was simple but solid, built by his own hands during the first winter when he had been snowed in for weeks. A hallway led to 3 bedrooms, one of which Cole used as an office, but it was the kitchen that made Catherine's face light up. It was spacious and well-equipped, with a modern cast iron stove, plenty of counter space, a large table for food preparation, and windows that let in abundant light. Copper pots hung from hooks, and the pantry was well stocked with basics. You have a beautiful kitchen, Catherine said softly, running her hand along the smooth wooden countertop. This is more than I expected. The previous owner's wife insisted on it, Cole explained. They built this place intending to raise a big family here. But she died in childbirth along with the baby, and he could not stand to stay. I bought it from him for a good price because he just wanted to be away from the memories. Catherine's expression grew somber. That is heartbreaking. It is. But I like to think she would be glad to know the kitchen she planned is finally being used properly. Cole paused, then continued. The bedroom at the end of the hall would be yours if you take the position. It has its own entrance from the side porch, so you would have privacy. I am in the bedroom on the opposite end. The middle room is my office. I want to be very clear that I am offering you employment, Miss Kane, nothing more and nothing less. You would have your own space, your own autonomy. The boys know better than to bother you with anything improper, and so do I. She met his eyes directly. Why are you being so careful to reassure me about this? Because I saw your face yesterday when I made my offer. I saw the fear that flashed through your eyes before you covered it. And I am guessing that means someone, at some point, has given you reason to be afraid of men making promises they do not intend to keep. Cole kept his voice gentle but firm. I will not be that man, Miss Kane. I am offering you honest work for honest pay, and nothing that you do not freely choose to give. Catherine was quiet for a long moment, then nodded slowly. 3 years ago, after I left Iowa, I took a position as a housekeeper for a wealthy family in Sacramento. The husband made it clear within a week that he expected more than cleaning and cooking. When I refused, he told his wife I had been stealing, and I was dismissed without references or the wages owed to me. I have been cautious about employment offers from men ever since. Anger flared hot in Cole's gut. That is despicable. That is reality for women like me. Catherine's voice was matter-of-fact but edged with old pain. We do what we must to survive, and we learn to be careful. If you work for me, you will be paid on time every month without fail. And if I or any of my men step out of line, Adelaide Patterson is welcome to come after us with whatever artillery she sees fit. Cole meant every word. You have my word on that. She studied him, and he felt as though he was being weighed and measured. Finally, something in her expression shifted, a wall coming down just slightly. I will take the position, Mr. Norwood. On a trial basis, let us say 2 months. If at any point either of us feels the arrangement is not working, we can part ways with no hard feelings. Relief and something else, something brighter, flooded through Cole. That is more than fair. When can you start? Give me 3 days to settle my affairs in town and gather my belongings. I will arrive on Thursday morning if that suits you. That suits me perfectly. He extended his hand, and after a moment's hesitation, Catherine took it. Her grip was firm and warm, and Cole held on perhaps a moment longer than was strictly necessary before releasing her. They rode back to Marysville in the golden afternoon light, talking more easily now, sharing stories about their pasts that were carefully edited but genuine nonetheless. Cole told her about learning to build the barn, about the time a bull broke through 3 fences and led him on a chase that lasted 2 days. Catherine told him about teaching herself to bake using her grandmother's recipes, about the satisfaction of creating something with her own hands that brought people joy. When they reached the livery stable, Mrs. Patterson was waiting, arms crossed and expression stern, until she caught sight of Catherine's face and relaxed visibly. "Well," the older woman demanded, "do I need to fetch the sheriff, or can I stand down?" "You can stand down, Adelaide." Catherine dismounted, smiling. "I have taken the position. I will be moving to the Norwood Ranch on Thursday." Mrs. Patterson looked between Catherine and Cole, her sharp eyes missing nothing. "You are certain about this, girl?" "I am certain." The landlady nodded slowly, then fixed Cole with another of those penetrating stares. "You take care of her, Mr. Norwood. Catherine Kane is special, even if she does not always see it herself. If I hear otherwise, you will answer to me." "I will take care of her," Cole promised, and meant it with every fiber of his being. The 3 days until Thursday felt like 3 years. Cole threw himself into work, repairing fence posts that did not need repairing, reorganizing the barn, and attempting to clean the main house to a standard that would not embarrass him. Pete watched his frantic efforts with amusement. "Never seen you this worked up over a new hire, boss," the older cowboy observed as Cole scrubbed the kitchen floor for the third time. "Just want to make a good impression," Cole muttered. "Uh-huh. That why you have been wearing your good shirt every day and actually combing your hair?" "Get back to work, Pete." But Pete was grinning as he left, and Cole knew his interest in Catherine was transparent. He told himself it was just because she was a good cook and would make life easier on the ranch. He told himself it had nothing to do with the way her green eyes lit up when she smiled, or the competent grace of her hands, or the fact that talking to her felt easier than talking to anyone had in years. He was a terrible liar, even to himself. Thursday morning dawned clear and warm. Cole was up before the sun, checking and rechecking everything, making sure Catherine's room was spotless and the kitchen was ready for her use. He had made a trip into town the day before to stock up on supplies, buying enough flour and sugar and spices to keep her well equipped for months. She arrived mid-morning in a wagon driven by Mrs. Patterson, her belongings packed into 3 large trunks and several smaller cases. Cole hurried out to meet them, waving the ranch hands over to help unload. "Miss Kane, welcome." He offered his hand to help her down from the wagon. "Mrs. Patterson, thank you for bringing her out." "I wanted to see the place in daylight," the older woman said, climbing down with surprising agility for someone with a cane, "and to make sure Catherine was truly settled before I left her here." They spent the next hour unloading Catherine's belongings and getting her room arranged. It was not much, just clothes and books and a few personal items, but Catherine handled each piece with care, arranging them in ways that made the space her own. Mrs. Patterson inspected everything with a critical eye, checking the lock on Catherine's door, examining the windows, even testing the bed for comfort. Finally satisfied, she pulled Catherine into a tight embrace. "You send word if you need anything, you hear me? And you come visit every Sunday after church if you are able." "I will, Adelaide. Thank you for everything." Catherine's voice was thick with emotion. After Mrs. Patterson left, Catherine stood in the kitchen looking slightly overwhelmed. Cole understood the feeling. They were essentially strangers who had just agreed to live under the same roof, and the weight of that decision was settling over both of them. "So," Catherine said finally, "I suppose I should start earning my pay. What time do the men usually eat supper?" 6 o'clock generally. "But you do not have to start cooking today. You just got here, you should take time to settle in." "I would rather keep busy." She rolled up her sleeves with determination. "Besides, you hired me to cook, and I am eager to show you what I can do. What do you have in terms of meat?" "We butchered a steer last week, so there is plenty of beef. Also chickens, eggs, milk from the cow. The pantry is fully stocked as of yesterday." Catherine's eyes lit up with the same expression Cole had seen when she first saw the kitchen. "Then let me get to work. You all are going to eat well tonight." She was not exaggerating. At 6 o'clock, the men gathered in the main house dining room to find the table laden with food that made them stop in their tracks. Pot roast with potatoes and carrots, fresh bread that steamed when broken open, green beans cooked with bacon, and a dried apple cake that smelled like heaven itself. "Miss Kane," Pete said reverently, "if you are not already married, I am proposing right now." Catherine laughed, and Cole felt an irrational spike of jealousy even though he knew Pete was joking. "I am not married, but I also do not accept proposals from men I have known for less than a day. Try again in a week and we will see." Dinner was a revelation. Not just because the food was exceptional, though it truly was, but because Catherine's presence changed the entire atmosphere. She joked easily with the men, told stories about her disastrous early attempts at cooking, and asked questions about their lives that showed genuine interest. She fit in seamlessly, as though she had always been meant to be there. After the meal, the ranch hands returned to the bunkhouse, still marveling over the food. Cole helped Catherine clean up, washing dishes while she dried and put them away, working in comfortable silence. "They are good men," Catherine said after a while. "Your ranch hands, you can tell they respect you. I am lucky to have them." Cole handed her another clean plate. "And I am lucky to have you here now. That meal was incredible, Miss Kane." "Catherine," she corrected gently. "If we are going to be living under the same roof and working together every day, we should probably use first names. Unless you prefer the formality." "Cole," he said immediately. "Please call me Cole." She smiled at him, and in the lamplight of the kitchen, with her sleeves rolled up and her hair slightly mussed from cooking, she looked more beautiful than any woman he had ever seen. The realization hit him like a physical blow. He was falling for her, had been falling since the moment he saw her selling pies in town, and the feeling was both terrifying and wonderful. The first few weeks of Catherine's employment established a rhythm. She woke early to prepare breakfast, worked through the day on various household tasks, and created dinners that made grown men nearly weep with gratitude. She baked bread twice a week, did laundry, tended a small garden she had started near the house, and somehow made it all look effortless. But Cole noticed other things too. The way she always locked her bedroom door at night, even though he had never given her reason to fear. The slight tension that came into her shoulders when any of the men moved too quickly in her direction. The careful way she maintained boundaries, friendly but never too familiar, kind but always slightly distant. He understood. Trust was earned, not given, especially for a woman who had been betrayed before. So he gave her space, treated her with unfailing respect, and tried very hard not to let his growing feelings show too obviously. It was harder than he expected. Catherine was everything he had not known he was looking for. She was intelligent, asking questions about the ranch operations that showed real interest in understanding how everything worked. She was funny, with a dry wit that caught him off guard and made him laugh more than he had in years. She was capable, tackling every task with determination and skill. And she was kind, in ways both large and small. From the way she bandaged Danny's hand when he cut it on a piece of wire to the way she always made sure Pete had extra cushions for his chair, because of his bad leg. One evening in late September, Cole was working on the ranch accounts in his office when Catherine knocked on the open door. "Am I interrupting?" she asked. "Not at all. Please come in." He set down his pen, grateful for the distraction. He had been staring at numbers for hours and they were starting to blur together. Catherine entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him and settled into the chair across from his desk. "I wanted to talk to you about something." "Of course." Cole wrapped his hands around the warm cup, trying not to notice how domestic this felt, how right. "I have been here for almost 5 weeks now, and I think the trial period is working out well." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "I was wondering if we could discuss making the arrangement permanent. I know we said 2 months, but I have been thinking about starting that bakery I mentioned. If I save my wages and continue selling pies on my days off in town, I could probably have enough in a year or 2 to rent a shop. But only if I know I have steady income to count on." Cole felt something twist in his chest. Of course she wanted to leave eventually. This was just a job to her, a means to an end. He was the one who had started thinking of her as a permanent part of his life, started imagining futures that included her smiling across the breakfast table every morning. "That makes perfect sense," he said, keeping his voice even. "I would be happy to make your employment permanent. And I will increase your wages to $25 a month, effective immediately. You are worth far more than what I am paying you." Catherine's eyes widened. "That is very generous, but not necessary." "It is absolutely necessary. You work harder than anyone I have ever employed, and you have made this place feel like an actual home rather than just a place I sleep." Cole met her eyes. "I want you to be able to reach your goals, Catherine. If that means helping you save for your bakery, then that is what I will do." She was quiet for a moment, studying him with an expression he could not quite read. "You are a good man, Cole Norwood, better than most I have met. I try to be. Why have you never married?" The question came out suddenly, as though she had not entirely meant to ask it. "I am sorry, that is too personal. You do not have to answer." "No, it is all right." Cole leaned back in his chair, considering. "I came close once before the war. There was a woman in St. Louis, daughter of one of the senior partners at my firm. Beautiful, educated, everything a man was supposed to want. We were engaged for 6 months. What happened? I enlisted. Told her I could not sit safely in an office while other men fought. She said if I left, she would not wait for me." He shrugged, old pain surfacing briefly. "She did not. By the time I came back, she had married someone else, had 2 children. I saw her once on the street, and she looked right through me as though I was a stranger. I am sorry. Do not be. The war changed me. I would not have been the man she had agreed to marry even if I had come back. And honestly, I am not sure I ever really loved her. I think I loved the idea of her, the life she represented. But there was never the kind of connection where you feel like someone sees the real you and loves you anyway." Catherine nodded slowly. "I understand that. Seeing the real you and loving you anyway. That is the hard part, is it not? Being willing to let someone see past all the walls we build." "Is that why you have never married?" Cole asked gently. "Because you were not willing to let the walls down?" "Partly." She took a sip of her coffee, staring into the cup as though it held answers. "Partly because the men who proposed were ones who saw me as convenient rather than as a person. A woman to cook and clean and bear children, but not a partner. Not someone whose dreams mattered as much as theirs." "Your dreams matter," Cole said, and he meant it with intensity that surprised even himself. "You deserve someone who sees them, who supports them, who wants to help you build the life you envision." She looked up at him then, and something passed between them, electric and undeniable. For a moment, Cole thought she might say something, might acknowledge the thing that had been building between them since the day they met. But then she stood, breaking the moment. "Thank you, Cole, for the permanent position and the raise, and for understanding about the bakery. Of course." He stood as well, aware that the office suddenly felt too small with both of them in it. "Catherine, I hope you know that even though you are saving for your own place, you will always have a home here, for as long as you want it." She paused at the door, looking back at him. "That means more than you know." After she left, Cole sat back down and stared at the account books without seeing them. He was in trouble, deep trouble, because he was falling in love with a woman who saw her time at his ranch as temporary, as a stepping stone to something else. And he had no idea how to tell her that what he wanted more than anything was for her to stay, not as his employee, but as something infinitely more. October brought cooler weather, and the hard work of preparing for winter. Cole and the hands spent long days repairing buildings, checking fence lines and moving cattle to better grazing. Catherine worked just as hard, canning vegetables from her garden, preserving meat, and making sure the pantry was fully stocked for the months ahead. One afternoon, Cole came in from the range to find Catherine in the kitchen, her arms covered in flour up to the elbows, surrounded by what appeared to be dozens of pies in various stages of completion. "Did I miss something?" he asked, bewildered. "Is there a baking emergency I was not informed about?" Catherine laughed, pushing a stray hair back with her wrist. "I am practicing. If I am going to have my own bakery someday, I need to be able to produce large quantities quickly and consistently. So I thought I would challenge myself. Plus, I figured the hands would not complain about having extra desserts around. They will not complain at all." Cole leaned against the door frame, content to watch her work. She moved with such confidence, such grace, every motion practiced and efficient. "Can I help?" "Do you know how to crimp a pie crust?" "I can learn." She taught him, standing close enough that he could smell the vanilla and cinnamon that seemed to cling to her hair, guiding his hands with hers to show him the proper technique. It was innocent, practical, but Cole felt every point of contact like a brand against his skin. Like this. He attempted to copy her movements, producing a crust edge that was passable if not pretty. "That is good for a first try." She smiled up at him, and God, she was close enough to kiss. The thought slammed into Cole with the force of a physical blow. He could just lean down, close the small distance between them, and finally know what it felt like to kiss Catherine Kane. But he did not. Could not. She trusted him, worked for him, relied on him for her livelihood. He would not abuse that trust by making unwanted advances, no matter how much he wanted to. Instead, he stepped back, clearing his throat. "I should let you work. I am probably more hindrance than help." Something flickered in Catherine's eyes, disappointment maybe, but it was gone so quickly he might have imagined it. "All right, thank you for trying." He escaped to his office and tried to focus on paperwork, but his mind kept drifting back to the kitchen, to Catherine, to the almost unbearable wanting that had taken up residence in his chest. That evening at dinner, Danny was unusually quiet, picking at his food despite it being one of Catherine's excellent chicken dishes. "You feeling all right?" Cole asked the young ranch hand. "Fine, boss." But Danny's tone said otherwise. After dinner, Cole found him sitting on the bunkhouse porch staring out at the darkening sky. He sat down beside the younger man, waiting. "There is a girl in town," Danny finally said. "Sarah Mitchell. Her father owns the feed store. I have been sweet on her for months, but I cannot seem to find the courage to talk to her proper. Every time I try, I just stand there like an idiot." Cole understood the feeling more than he cared to admit. "What are you afraid of?" "That she will laugh at me. That I am not good enough for someone like her." Danny's voice was miserable. "Her father is successful, respected. I am just a ranch hand with no prospects." "You are a hard worker who is learning a valuable trade," Cole corrected firmly. "You are honest, kind, and you have your whole life ahead of you. Any woman would be lucky to have you, Danny, and if Sarah Mitchell does not see that, then she is not worthy of you." The young man looked at him hopefully. "You really think so?" "I do. And I will tell you something I am learning myself. Fear of rejection is not a good reason to stay silent about how you feel. You will regret the words unspoken far more than the ones said." Even as Cole gave the advice, he knew he was a hypocrite. He had not told Catherine how he felt, had not taken the risk of laying his heart bare. But maybe it was time to change that. The next Sunday, Catherine asked if she could borrow the wagon to visit Adelaide Patterson in town. Cole immediately offered to drive her, and she accepted with a smile that made his heart do complicated things in his chest. The ride to Marysville was pleasant, the autumn air crisp and clear. They talked easily about everything and nothing, and Cole marveled at how comfortable he felt with her, how natural. Mrs. Patterson greeted them warmly, insisting Cole stay for lunch. The three of them sat around her kitchen table, eating pot roast and sharing stories. The older woman clearly doted on Catherine, treating her with the affection of a beloved daughter. "You look happy," Mrs. Patterson observed to Catherine. "Better than I have seen you in a long while." "I am happy," Catherine admitted, glancing at Cole. "The ranch is a good place. I feel safe there." After lunch, Cole excused himself to run some errands, giving Catherine privacy with her friend. He spent an hour at the general store and the feed store, ordering supplies and chatting with the shopkeepers. It was there that he ran into a problem. "Cole Norwood," a sharp voice called out. He turned to see Grace Henderson, the bakery owner Catherine had mentioned, bearing down on him with a sour expression. "I hear you have hired that Kane woman." "I have," Cole said carefully. "She is my ranch cook." "I suppose she has been filling your head with lies about me," Mrs. Henderson sniffed, "telling you I ran her out of town. She mentioned you made things difficult for her business-wise, but I did not hire her to spite you, madam. I hired her because she is an excellent cook." "She is a troublemaker and worse." The older woman leaned in conspiratorially. "I heard things about her from Sacramento, about why she really left that housekeeping position. It was not as innocent as she probably told you." Anger flared hot in Cole's chest. "I am not interested in gossip, Mrs. Henderson. Catherine has been nothing but professional and hardworking. Whatever you think you know about her past is none of my concern. You are making a mistake, keeping her under your roof. People talk, Mr. Norwood. They will start to wonder what exactly she is doing to earn her keep. Then people can come talk to me directly and I will set them straight." Cole kept his voice level but cold. "Good day, Mrs. Henderson." He left the store fuming. The injustice of it burned in his gut. The way women like Catherine were always subject to whispers and speculation. Their reputations fragile things that could be destroyed by rumor and innuendo. He wanted to protect her from all of it, to stand between her and every small-minded gossip in the territory. When he returned to collect Catherine from Mrs. Patterson's house, he must have still looked angry because Adelaide took one look at him and said, "What happened?" "Nothing important," Cole said, not wanting to worry Catherine, but the older woman was sharp. "You ran into Grace Henderson, did you not? How did you know?" "Because she is a poisonous old bat who cannot stand to see another woman succeed." Mrs. Patterson patted his arm. "Do not let her get to you. She tried the same nonsense with me years ago. The trick is to not give her the satisfaction of a reaction." On the ride back to the ranch, Catherine was quiet, and Cole suspected she had heard about the encounter from Adelaide. "Whatever Mrs. Henderson said to you," Catherine finally spoke, "I do not expect you to defend me. I know how things look, an unmarried woman living in your house. I am prepared for gossip." "I am not," Cole said firmly. "And I will defend you, Catherine, whether you expect it or not. What she said, what she implied, it was vile, and I will not let it stand." "What did she imply?" Cole hesitated, but Catherine deserved honesty. "That you were earning your keep in ways other than cooking, and that there were scandalous reasons you left Sacramento." He felt Catherine go rigid beside him, saw her hands clench in her lap. When she spoke, her voice was tight with old pain and fresh anger. "The man in Sacramento, the one whose wife accused me of theft. After I was dismissed, he spread rumors that I had tried to seduce him, that I was a woman of loose morals. It followed me for months. I thought I had finally escaped it by coming to Marysville." "Catherine, I do not believe—" "I know you do not," she interrupted, "but others will. Grace Henderson will make sure of it, and eventually it will damage your reputation too, having me there. Maybe I should look for other employment." "No." The word came out sharper than Cole intended. He pulled the wagon to a stop, turning to face her fully. "You are not leaving. I do not care what Grace Henderson or anyone else says. You have done nothing wrong, and I will not let gossip drive you away from a place where you are happy and safe. Cole, you do not understand what it is like. The whispers, the looks, the way people treat you once they decide you are improper. It will touch you too. Then let it. He reached out, covering her clenched hands with one of his own. Catherine, you are the best thing that has happened to this ranch to me in years. I am not going to lose that because of small-minded people who have nothing better to do than judge others. She looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face. Why are you being so kind to me? Because I am falling in love with you, Cole thought. Because the idea of you leaving makes it hard to breathe. Because you have become essential to my happiness in ways I cannot fully articulate. But he could not say those things, not yet. So instead he said, because you deserve kindness, because you deserve to be treated with respect and dignity, and because I value you not just as an employee but as a person. Catherine's eyes were bright with unshed tears. Thank you, she whispered. They sat there for a long moment, hands still touching, something significant passing between them. Then Catherine gently pulled away, and Cole set the wagon moving again, both of them lost in thoughts they were not quite ready to voice. November brought the first real cold snap, and with it, a crisis. Pete's bad leg, always troublesome in winter weather, took a turn for the worse. He developed an infection that sent him to bed with a fever, requiring constant care and medication that Cole had to ride into town to fetch from the doctor. Catherine took charge of nursing Pete with the same calm efficiency she brought to everything. She changed his bandages, made him special broths to keep his strength up, and sat with him during the worst of the fever, applying cool cloths to his forehead and talking to him in a low, soothing voice. Cole watched her care for the older man and felt his heart crack open a little wider. She was so genuinely good, so compassionate, that it hurt to look at her sometimes. It took a week, but Pete finally turned the corner, his fever breaking and the infection beginning to clear. The night it happened, Catherine emerged from Pete's room in the bunkhouse looking exhausted but relieved. "He is going to be all right," she told Cole, who had been pacing anxiously in the yard. "The worst has passed." Without thinking, Cole pulled her into a hug, relief flooding through him. For a moment, Catherine stiffened, and he started to pull back, afraid he had overstepped. But then she relaxed against him, her arms coming up to wrap around his waist, her head resting against his chest. They stood like that for a long moment, holding each other under the November stars. Cole could feel her heartbeat against his own, could smell the faint vanilla scent of her hair. It felt right, being this close to her, like something clicking into place. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for taking such good care of him. You did not have to do all that." "Yes, I did," Catherine said, her voice muffled against his shirt. "He is a good man, and he was suffering. Of course I had to help." She pulled back slightly, looking up at him, and Cole saw his own feelings reflected in her eyes. Want and fear and possibility, all tangled together. He raised one hand, cupping her cheek gently, giving her every opportunity to pull away. She did not. "Catherine," he breathed, and it was a question and a prayer and a promise all at once. "Cole," she answered and rose up on her toes just as he bent down, and then they were kissing, soft and tentative and absolutely perfect. It lasted only a moment before they broke apart, both breathing hard, staring at each other in wonder and slight panic. "I should not have done that," Cole said, even though it was the last thing he wanted to say. "You work for me, and I should not take advantage." "You are not taking advantage," Catherine interrupted. "I wanted you to kiss me. I have wanted it for weeks." Hope flared bright in Cole's chest. "You have. Of course I have. Did you think I was blind to the way you look at me? The way you defend me, protect me, make me feel like I matter." She laughed shakily. I have been trying so hard not to develop feelings for you because I work for you, and because I have plans for my own bakery, and because I swore I would never let myself be dependent on a man again. But despite all that, I think I am falling for you, Cole Norwood. You are. He felt like his heart might explode. Because I am definitely falling for you. Have been since the day I saw you selling pies in town. Maybe that makes me foolish, falling so fast, but I cannot seem to help it. It does not make you foolish, it makes you honest. Catherine reached up, touching his face with wondering fingers. But Cole, we need to be smart about this. People are already talking about me living in your house. If they think there is something romantic between us, the gossip will get worse. I do not care about gossip. But I do. I care about protecting your reputation and, yes, protecting my own. I have worked too hard to rebuild my life to let it be destroyed by scandal. She stepped back, putting space between them even though it clearly cost her. We need to take this slowly. We need to be careful. Cole wanted to argue, wanted to pull her back into his arms and damn the consequences, but he respected her too much to push. All right. Slow and careful, but Catherine, you should know that my intentions are serious. When I think about my future, you are in it. Not as my employee, but as my partner, my equal. I want that too, she admitted softly. More than I have wanted anything in a long time, but I am scared, Cole. Scared of losing my independence, scared of being hurt, scared that this is too good to be real. I am scared too, he confessed. Scared that you will decide your bakery dreams are more important than a life here with me. Scared that I am not enough to make you want to stay. They looked at each other, both vulnerable and honest in ways they had never been with anyone else. So we take it slow, Catherine said. We figure this out together without rushing. Can you do that? I can try, Cole said. Though I am not going to lie, it is going to be torture living in the same house with you now and having to maintain proper distance. She smiled, and it was both tender and mischievous. Who said anything about maintaining distance when we are alone? Then she kissed him again, longer this time, deeper, her hands fisting in his shirt as he wrapped his arms around her and held on like she was the only solid thing in a tilting world. When they finally broke apart, both were flushed and breathless. Slow and careful, Cole repeated, his voice rough. Slow and careful, Catherine agreed. Starting tomorrow, tonight I just want to be happy about this. So they stood in the yard, stealing kisses between whispered conversations about their hopes and fears, until the cold finally drove them inside. They parted at the hallway, Catherine going to her room and Cole to his, but the warmth of what had started between them lingered through the night. The next weeks were a study in restraint and stolen moments. In front of the ranch hands, Cole and Catherine maintained their professional relationship, careful not to give any hint of the feelings developing between them. But when they were alone in the kitchen late at night or on Sunday rides to town, they let their guards down. They talked endlessly, learning each other's histories and dreams. Cole told Catherine about the horrors of the war, the guilt he carried over men who had died under his command, the way he had rebuilt himself out here in the wild. Catherine told him about her childhood on the Iowa farm, about her mother's death when she was 12, about learning to be strong because there was no other choice. They courted in small, careful ways. Cole brought her wildflowers he found on the range. Catherine baked his favorite pies and left them where he would find them. They invented excuses to be near each other, their hands brushing as they washed dishes, their shoulders touching as they sat on the porch watching sunsets. And they kissed whenever they could steal a moment alone, learning the shape and taste of each other, exploring this new intimacy with wonder and growing confidence. But they were careful, so careful to maintain propriety otherwise. Catherine still locked her bedroom door at night. Cole never entered her room, and she never entered his. They both knew that one misstep could destroy Catherine's reputation beyond repair, and neither was willing to risk that. December brought the first snow, light dustings that melted quickly, but signaled harder weather to come. The ranch settled into winter routines, days shortened by cold and darkness. It should have been a bleak time, but Cole had never been happier. Then, a week before Christmas, everything changed. A rider came to the ranch late one afternoon, a lawyer from Sacramento with news that made Catherine go pale and still. Her brother in Iowa had died in a farming accident, leaving behind a widow and 3 small children. The widow was selling the farm and returning to her family back east. She wanted nothing to do with Catherine, made that clear in a curt letter, but the lawyer informed Catherine that her brother had left her a small sum of money, enough to finally open her bakery if she wanted. "I am so sorry," Cole said when the lawyer had gone and Catherine sat staring at the letter with unseeing eyes. "I know you are not close to your brother, but losing family is never easy." "I do not know what I feel," Catherine admitted. "Sad, yes, but also angry. Angry that he shut me out of his life, that he let his wife treat me like an unwanted burden, that we never had the chance to mend what was broken between us." She looked up at Cole, her eyes bright with tears. "And I feel guilty because part of me, a terrible part of me, is thinking about the money. About what it means for my plans. That does not make you terrible, it makes you human." Cole sat beside her, taking her hand. "What are you thinking? That I could open my bakery now, that I have enough money to rent a shop, buy equipment, start the business I have been dreaming about for years." She swallowed hard. "That this is what I have been working toward all this time." "It is," Cole agreed, even though the words felt like they were being torn from his chest. "You should do it, Catherine. You should follow your dream." She looked at him, really looked at him, searching his face. "Is that what you want? For me to leave and open a bakery in town?" "No," he wanted to shout. "No, I want you to stay here with me, to build a life together, to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my days." But he could not say that. Could not ask her to give up the dream she had been chasing long before she met him. So instead he said, "I want you to be happy. If owning a bakery will make you happy, then that is what you should do." Catherine stood abruptly, walking to the window. Her back was rigid, her hands clenched at her sides. "Do you remember what you said to me once? About deserving someone who sees your dreams and supports them, who wants to help you build the life you envision?" "I remember. What if my dreams have changed?" She turned to face him, and there were tears on her cheeks now. "What if the life I envision is not the same as it was 6 months ago?" Cole's heart stuttered. "What are you saying?" "I am saying that when I imagine my future now, yes, I see a bakery. But more than that, I see you. I see this ranch, these people who have become like family. I see a life built together, not lived in parallel." She crossed to him, kneeling in front of his chair so they were eye level. "I am saying that I love you, Cole Norwood, and I do not want to leave." Joy, pure and bright, flooded through him. "You love me. I love you. Completely, terrifyingly, wonderfully. I love the way you treat everyone with kindness and respect. I love how hard you work and how much you care about this land. I love your honesty and your strength and the way you make me laugh. I love who I am when I am with you." Cole pulled her up and into his arms, kissing her with all the emotion he had been holding back for months. "I love you too," he said against her lips. "So much that it scares me. I love your determination and your compassion and your incredible skill. I love your wit and your courage and the way you make this house feel like a home. I love every single thing about you." They held each other for a long time, both crying a little, both laughing a little, both overwhelmed by the magnitude of what they were feeling. "But I still want you to have your bakery," Cole said finally. You should not have to give up your dreams for me. Catherine smiled, brilliant and sure. Then maybe we figure out how I can have both. The bakery and you, the life I dreamed of, and the one I never dared imagine. How? What if I opened my bakery but kept living here? I could go into town 3 or 4 days a week, hire someone to help run it, and come back here the rest of the time. This ranch needs someone managing the household, and I am good at that. I do not want to stop doing it. Hope flared again. You would do that, split your time like that. If you are willing to be patient while I build the business, yes. And Cole, there is something else I need to say. She took a breath, gathering courage. I do not want to just be your employee or your business partner. I want more than that. I want to be your wife. Cole felt like the air had been knocked out of his lungs. Catherine, I know it is fast, she rushed on. I know we have only been courting secretly for a few weeks, but I also know what I feel and I know what I want. I want to marry you, Cole. I want to build a life with you, a real partnership where we support each other's dreams and work together towards shared goals. I want to wake up beside you and fall asleep in your arms. I want to have children with you and watch them grow up on this beautiful land. I want all of it if you want it too. If I want it, Cole laughed, the sound edged with disbelief and joy. Catherine, I have wanted that since the day I bought all your pies. I just did not think I had the right to ask for it. Then I am asking you, Cole Norwood, will you marry me? Yes, he said immediately, emphatically. Yes, Catherine Kane, I will marry you. I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret taking a chance on a lonely cowboy who could not cook to save his life. She laughed through tears, and he kissed her again, sealing the promise they had just made to each other. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the small church in Marysville. Mrs. Patterson stood as Catherine's witness, Pete as Cole's. The ranch hands cleaned up and came to watch, along with a handful of townspeople who had come to respect Catherine, despite Grace Henderson's best efforts at gossip. Catherine wore a simple dress in deep blue that brought out the green of her eyes. Cole wore his best suit, the one he had not touched since his lawyer days, and felt like the luckiest man alive as Catherine walked down the aisle toward him. The ceremony was brief, but heartfelt. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cole kissed Catherine in front of God and everyone, not caring who saw or what they thought. She was his now, and he was hers, and nothing else mattered. The celebration afterward was held at Mrs. Patterson's boarding house, with food and music and dancing. Even Grace Henderson stopped by, offering stiff congratulations that were probably more about maintaining social standing than genuine goodwill, but Catherine accepted them graciously. As the evening wore on and the guests began to depart, Cole pulled Catherine aside. "Are you ready to go home, Mrs. Norwood?" She smiled at the name, testing it out. "Mrs. Norwood, I like how that sounds. So do I." He kissed her softly. "Thank you for marrying me. Thank you for buying all my pies." They rode back to the ranch under a sky full of stars, Catherine nestled against Cole's side in the wagon. The house was quiet when they arrived, the hands tactfully staying in the bunkhouse to give the newlyweds privacy. Inside, Cole had prepared a surprise. The bedroom that had been his was now transformed, decorated with wildflowers and candles, the bed made up with new linens. Catherine's belongings had been moved in, mingling with his in a way that felt natural and right. "Cole, this is beautiful," Catherine breathed. "Not as beautiful as you." He pulled her close, suddenly nervous despite everything they had shared. "Catherine, I need you to know that I will never pressure you. We can take this as slow as you need, as slow as you want." She cupped his face in her hands, her eyes full of love and trust. "I am not afraid, Cole. Not with you. I want this. I want you." What followed was tender and sweet, two people learning each other in the most intimate way possible. Cole was gentle, patient, worshipful in his attentions. Catherine was brave and open, giving herself fully, trusting completely. When they finally came together, it felt like coming home, like finding the piece of themselves they had not known was missing. Afterward, they lay tangled in the sheets, Catherine's head on Cole's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you too. So much." He pressed a kiss to her hair. "Thank you for taking a chance on me. Thank you for seeing me, really seeing me for who I am and what I could be." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other and in the future they would build together. The months that followed were filled with hard work and deep happiness. Catherine opened her bakery in March, a small shop on Main Street that she named Kane's Kitchen, in honor of her grandmother and her own identity. Cole helped her paint and set up equipment, and the ranch hands pitched in during their free time. The bakery was an instant success. Catherine's pies and breads and cakes drew customers from all over the county. She hired 2 young women to help, training them in the techniques her grandmother had taught her. 3 days a week, she worked in town. The other days she was at the ranch, managing the household and cooking for the hands and being Cole's partner in every sense of the word. It was not always easy. There were days when Catherine was exhausted from juggling both responsibilities, when Cole worried that she was taking on too much. There were nights when they argued about money or decisions or the future, learning how to navigate conflict as a married couple. But there were far more days and nights filled with joy. Quiet mornings watching the sunrise together. Evenings spent planning and dreaming. Laughter around the dinner table with the ranch hands. The simple pleasure of falling asleep beside each other and waking up together. In August, a year after they had met, Catherine told Cole she was pregnant. He whooped with joy and spun her around the kitchen, nearly knocking over a pie in the process. She laughed and cried and held him tight, both of them overwhelmed by the miracle of the new life they had created. Their son was born the following April, arriving during a warm spring rainstorm that left the world green and fresh. They named him James, after Cole's father, and the baby had Catherine's green eyes and Cole's dark hair. Cole held his son for the first time and felt his heart expand in ways he had not known were possible. Catherine scaled back her bakery hours after James was born, coming in only 2 days a week and leaving most of the operation to her assistants. She had proven her business could succeed. Now she wanted to focus on their growing family. Pete, fully recovered from his infection, proved to be a devoted honorary grandfather to James. Danny, who had finally worked up the courage to court Sarah Mitchell and was now engaged to her, practiced his future parenting skills by doting on the baby. Hector carved a beautiful cradle with his own hands, presenting it shyly as a gift. The ranch prospered under Cole's management and Catherine's organizational skills. They expanded the herd, hired 2 more hands, and built a new barn. The house that had once felt empty and echoing was now filled with life and love and the sounds of a baby's laughter. On their 2nd anniversary, Cole and Catherine stood on the porch watching the sunset, James asleep in Catherine's arms. "You ever regret it?" Cole asked quietly. "Giving up the dream of running your bakery full-time?" "Never," Catherine said firmly. "I still have the bakery. I built something I am proud of, proved to myself that I could do it. But this, right here, is what I really wanted all along. A home, a family, a partner who loves and respects me. You gave me that, Cole. You gave it to me too. Before you, I was just going through the motions, working and sleeping and existing. You made me live again. You made me happy." James stirred in Catherine's arms, making small baby sounds. Cole reached out, stroking his son's soft hair, marveling at the perfection of this tiny human they had created. "We should have more," Catherine said suddenly. "I want James to have siblings, to grow up with a house full of love and laughter." "More children," Cole grinned. "I would like that. A whole passel of them, if you are willing." "I am willing. As long as you are there with me, I am willing to try anything." True to their word, their family continued to grow. A daughter named Sarah came 2 years after James, with auburn hair and her father's quick smile. Another son, Thomas, arrived 18 months later, loud and boisterous from the day he was born. The house expanded to accommodate them all, wings added and rooms built as the family grew. The bakery continued to thrive under the management of Catherine's assistants, eventually expanding to a second location. Catherine maintained ownership and provided guidance, but she no longer needed to be there daily. Her focus was on her family and the ranch, and she had never been happier. Pete eventually retired from ranch work, but stayed on in a small cabin Cole built for him near the main house. He spent his days teaching the Norwood children about horses and cattle and the land, a beloved fixture in their lives. Danny married Sarah Mitchell and became Cole's foreman, building his own small house on ranch property. Hector married a widow from town and moved on to start his own spread, but remained a close friend. Grace Henderson's bakery eventually closed, unable to compete with Catherine's superior products and customer service. The older woman moved away to live with relatives, and Catherine felt no satisfaction in her defeat, only a kind of sad understanding of what bitterness and jealousy could do to a person. Mrs. Patterson remained a constant presence, visiting often and being called Grandma Adelaide by all the Norwood children. She lived to the age of 87, passing peacefully in her sleep, and both Cole and Catherine mourned her deeply. As the years passed, Cole and Catherine grew older together, their love deepening with time rather than fading. They weathered droughts and harsh winters, economic downturns and personal losses. They celebrated successes and comforted each other through failures. They raised their children to be kind and hardworking and honest, instilling in them the values that had brought their parents together. On their 25th anniversary, their children now grown, Cole took Catherine back to Marysville. The town had changed, grown larger and more modern, but the spot where she had sold pies all those years ago was still recognizable. "Right here," Cole said, standing on the corner. "This is where I saw you and knew my life was about to change. Did you really know, even then?" Catherine asked, leaning against him. "Maybe not consciously, but something in me recognized something in you. Recognized home." Catherine turned in his arms, looking up at the face she loved more than any other, now lined with age and experience but still so dear. "Do you know what I thought when you bought all my pies?" "What?" "I thought you were crazy, but also I thought maybe, just maybe, you might be the kind of crazy I needed in my life." She smiled. "I was right. We were both right. Right to take the chance, right to trust what we felt, right to build this life together." They kissed there on the corner, two people who were no longer young but whose love was as fresh and vital as it had been that August day so many years ago. The Norwood Ranch continued for generations, passed down to James and then to his children, a legacy of hard work and love. Catherine's bakery became a town institution, celebrated for over 50 years before finally closing when Catherine decided at 72 that she had baked enough pies for one lifetime. Cole and Catherine lived into their 80s, surrounded by children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren, their love story becoming family legend. They died within 6 months of each other, Cole first and then Catherine, as though she had simply been waiting to make sure he was settled on the other side before joining him. At Catherine's funeral, the church was packed with people whose lives she had touched. James stood up to speak, his voice thick with emotion. My mother used to tell us about the day she met my father, how he bought all her pies and changed her life forever. She said it was the day she learned that love could be both practical and magical, both simple and profound. That sometimes the biggest moments start with the smallest gestures. My parents built a life together based on respect and partnership and deep, abiding love. They showed all of us what marriage could be when two people truly commit to each other's happiness. We will miss them both terribly, but we take comfort in knowing they are together again, probably arguing about whose turn it is to make dinner and laughing about old times. The gathering laughed through tears, remembering the couple who had shown them all what true love looked like. In the end, Cole and Catherine's story was not complicated. A lonely cowboy saw a woman selling pies and made a bold offer. She took a chance on him. They fell in love, built a life together, and lived happily ever after, their days filled with hard work and deep joy, their nights filled with love and laughter. It was a simple story, really, but it was theirs and it was perfect.